Hello and welcome to the Rotoworld Baseball Show. My name is DJ Short, filling in here for Eric Samolsky, and I'm joined by Scott Pianowski and Christopher Crawford. What's going on, guys? Good to have you here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us. It's looking forward to this format. I won't spoil it because I'm sure you're excited to talk about it, but this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here too. Love game shows. Famously, when I was a kid, we went to the beach one day. I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I faked an illness because I wanted to get home in time to watch whatever game show I was into at that time. And then I constantly, on the way home, asked what time it was.
Beautiful.
And my parents saw through that. We did not get home in time for the game show, but I am here in time for today's extravaganza. So excited to do it.
Awesome. So a fun fact about me, I used to fool my parents into thinking I was a Jeopardy genius because I lived in between Baltimore and Philadelphia growing up. So at one affiliate, ABC affiliate, they played it at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And the other, they played it at 7:30. So I would watch the 7 o'clock one and then go downstairs, like we'd be eating dinner or hanging out, and I would like know things that I probably shouldn't know because I would memorize everything. And
that's so great.
They might have known that I was cheating. But
they have a word for that. Yeah, it's called cheating. Yes.
Yeah. But not cheating, not trying, something along those lines. One of my favorite episodes of Seinfeld is when you find out that George is starting to become really smart because of what he gives up in playing Seinfeld. And Groundhog Day is either my second or third favorite movie of all time, and watching Bill Murray scare the heck out of them by like giving them the answers to the question before the question even comes up is one of my favorite things.
That's outstanding. And of course, we have to mention Cliff Clavin getting his dream.
Oh
Jeopardy
my gosh!
Cheers, and then blowing it on the final Jeopardy. Yeah, that's a classic episode.
I may give that answer if I don't like what I hear in these questions.
Do that too, for sure.
Absolutely.
Do it. I mean, apparently there's going to be a new Jeopardy, a pop culture Jeopardy coming out, which I am going to kill in that.
Yes.
Regular Jeopardy, unless it's Celebrity Jeopardy, I know some stuff, but like generally not so
yeah,
great.
I would need it to be there's like 3 or 4 things I know a lot about. I do not know all the monarchies. I do not know all the world capitals. Although I will say that in college, me and a bartender friend of mine did join a sports-related Jeopardy contest and won the contest.
Nice.
It's actually a really sad story. I won a round-trip ticket to go anywhere I wanted to go in the U.S., and I was so poor because a college kid who has money in college, right?
Sure.
I didn't use the ticket, and I realized what I should have done: just pick the city I wanted to go into, and even if I just hung out in the airport, I mean, whatever, I could have scrounged up $100. $100. Yeah, I didn't use the ticket. I wrote to the now defunct Continental Airlines, said, "Hey, I have money for this trip now. It's been a year and a half.
Wow.
Would you consider giving a poor kid, a credit?" They did not give me a credit. Now they're out of business. I think it was because of poor business decisions like that.
Poor customer service.
That was the start of the downhill for sure.
Yeah, there you go. That's what historians say.
Yeah.
With today's show, I get to once again live my dreams as a game show host as we play the latest edition of Name That Player. There's no game show music playing, but there should be. Yeah. I've done this game show a number of times over the years on this show, but the basic idea is that we have 3 categories of questions: a hitter category, a pitcher category, and a miscellaneous category. Scott and Chris will go head to head with these questions, all based on stats from the 2024 MLB season to date. We'll have one final question where you can rack up some extra points, and we'll see where we land at the end. Should be a lot of fun, but also a good jumping off point for discussion on some players, both in real life and fantasy. You guys ready to go?
Beautiful. Love it.
All right, let's do it.
Before we get started, let's talk about the French Open currently going on right now. The field continues to narrow as we draw closer to champions being crowned at the French Open. Find out who advances on the clay courts of Roland Garros by streaming matches on Peacock today through Sunday. So stay tuned for that. I know our producer Adam is locked in on that right now. All right. So let's see. Chris, you're a guest on the show, essentially. So I will let you go first. And you each have a document where basically we have points ranges from 100 to 500 in each category. We have a pitcher category, which is the Pedro Martinez division. We have a hitter category, which is the Ken Griffey Jr. division. And we have a miscellaneous division with Shohei Ohtani division. So where would you like to start, Chris?
I'm going to go Shohei Ohtani division for 300.
I'm already thrown off because the guy's wearing a Mariners hat and he doesn't go to the Ken Griffey Jr. division. All my prep work is in the toilet.
I'm finding the daily doubles that definitely exist, right?
There you go. He's hunting for a daily double. I got it.
There are no daily doubles. I don't want to get sued. Okay, 300 Shohei Ohtani division. And if you've read my MLB Power Rankings article on NBCSports.com, you might know the answer to this question. Okay. Which rookie position player leads the majors in the FanGraphs version of wins above replacement?
Oh boy.
Jordan Westbrook?
Nope. Just guess. We've been talking about him.
Goodness gracious. Why is this not coming to me? I'm blaming 10 a.m. now, by the way, for not getting this one. There's got to be some sort of excuse. Shota Imanaga?
No, position player.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, it's Joey Ortiz with the Brewers.
Oh, of course it is.
Joey Ortiz.
Of course it is.
So we talked about Ortiz on the Q&A yesterday and the podcast on Monday. So this is a big fail by Chris right now.
Huge.
But Ortiz, of course, traded to the Brewers, and the Corbin Burns trade has been a huge part of a surprising season for the Brewers so far. Hitting for average, getting on base, has been a waiver wire darling so far this season. So nice surprise, Joey Ortiz. Kind of, emblematic of what the Brewers have been to this point. I believe
one of the biggest surprises in fantasy baseball and real baseball. And I wish I do have some Bryce Terang shares, but I wish I had more investments into that offense.
All right, so Chris, let's go back. What you got next?
Ken Griffey Jr. for 100, please.
Okay, which hitter has the hardest hit ball this season?
Julio Rodriguez.
Incorrect.
O'Neal Cruz.
You got it.
Dang it.
So that's just my go-to answer. Whenever you have a question like that, I just go with O'Neal Cruz.
Well, you never know. Someone might have said Judge or
yeah.
Totally a guess, by the way. But
what is the MPH on that hit? I'm sure you're about to tell us.
121.5 miles per hour. O'Neal Cruz.
Isn't it funny that before the season it was like, choose your weapon, Ellie De La Cruz, O'Neal Cruz, and it's like even though Ellie's hitting in the 230s, I think now, obviously he's been one of the big wins of the season, and he was so polarizing before the season, right?
Yeah, a lot of volatility coming into the year.
A lot of people. There was a joke that everybody who was on Patrick Davitt's show at one point in March was just like panning Ellie De La Cruz. I'm sure I was in that parade, and we're not having a parade anymore because Ellie De La Cruz, despite the average, has been such a great fantasy player. Is it going to happen? Are we still feeling good about O'Neal Cruz?
I think he needs to hit lefties.
Yeah,
that's the big part. That's the big part that could ultimately get him in a platoon role.
Yeah. That's my concern as well. And just because we talked about it on Tuesday with De La Cruz, the long levers, it's even longer with Cruz. There are always going to be issues in that regard. Not only just making contact, but making hard contact. Now, when the ball obviously jumps off his bat. See the answer you just gave to this question not too long ago. But there's some things that really got to get better quick, and some things that are out of his control that might prevent him from ever reaching that lofty ceiling.
True. All right, Scott, you got the board.
Yeah, let's go Griffey for 200.
Griffey for 200. All right. 3 qualified hitters have more walks than strikeouts so far this season. Name one of them.
Juan Soto.
Incorrect.
Luis Arias.
Incorrect. All right. So Mookie Betts, Kyle Tucker, Nico Horner. There's your 3.
I love. We always talk about this when I'm on with Eric. I love guys who have more walks than strikeouts. It's like the truest symbols of batting skill. And I think it's my FOMO of having no Juan Soto shares that had me yell out Juan Soto, or maybe Shelly Bergestrade is in my mind right now. But I'm surprised Soto can't be far away, right?
No, I don't believe so. I don't have a leaderboard in front of me currently, but he's close. All right, Scott, you got the board.
Yeah, let's keep going with Griffey 300.
Okay. Only one player is in the 90th percentile or better in barrel percentage, average exit velocity, and speed this season, according to StatCast. Who is that player? Scott.
That's a really good stat, though.
You gotta get the question again.
Only one player, position player, hitter, is in the 90th percentile or better in barrel percentage, average exit velocity, and speed. Who is that player?
Is it Shohei?
Nope. Chris?
Bobby Witt Jr.
You got it.
Yeah. As soon as you said that, I'm like, of course it's Bobby Witt Jr. Very
He's
good.
in the 100th percentile in speed. And I believe he's either 98th or 99th percentile in barrel and average exit velocity.
I think he's also currently the leader in banked 5x5 value. Obviously, it helped that he hit 2 home runs on Tuesday night, but basically he's the rightest of the right answers.
If you did a redraft, or if you did a draft for 2025 for whatever reason on June 5th, is he the number 1 pick?
I think so. Category league, yes.
Yeah. And we should do that for whatever reason, Chris. Yeah. I'll draft tonight. I'm ready, guys.
Yeah,
and
I'm ready.
We'll do it. I'm always looking for a gimmick. So
Well, this year the gimmick was the Friends and Family League drafted a month into the season, which I think I'm going to make a standard. Who knows? Maybe one year we'll draft in June. But yeah, Bobby Witt, man.
I'm not doing great in that league right now. But
You've won it before. You go to the Champions Dinner.
I've done it, but this year not looking great for me. All right, Chris, you've taken control of the board.
Ohtani for 100, please.
Ohtani for 100. Let me bring it up here. Which qualified starting pitcher has the highest swinging strike percentage so far this season?
Garrett Crochet.
Nope.
Highest swinging strike percentage? George Kirby.
Nope. It's Jared Jones.
Wow.
Another FOMO guy.
Yeah.
Yep. Who took care of business against Shohei Ohtani last night. Actually pitched a great game.
Yeah, I'll pitch Tyler
against the Dodgers. Yeah, I mean, that's got to feel good for Pirates fans after all the grief that organization took, trading Tyler Glasnow to the Rays to have Jared Jones outduel him. Like, that's pretty awesome.
Have they come up with their version of Spawn? And this is like such a dated reference, but it was Spawn Insane and 2 Days of Rain.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Giants, Chris Berman had a version of that where the Giants had Burkett and Swift and then pray for a snowdrift. It's going to be some version of Skeens and Jones or Jones and Skeens. And then,
All right. Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that. I know we could come up with a good rhyme. I don't have it right now, but
it's got to involve Livy Dunn one way or another. I'm just letting
I love it. Okay. So I think Chris, you have control.
Let's start doing some pitching again. I guess we've gotten a couple pitching questions. Let's go Pedro for 200.
Okay. Which starting pitcher has the best / highest? So we're not talking about best or highest strikeout to walk ratio.
George Kirby.
That is correct.
So I have a running gimmick on whatever they call that website right now that I have to tweet the word bumfuzzle after every walk that George Kirby makes this year. And I just had to do it for the 7th time in the year of our Lord, 2024.
Yeah, one of the easiest pitchers to watch, right? Because he's always around the plate. You just have to live with the contact, right? I mean, Aaron Nola's like that. Logan Webb's like that.
Yeah.
But I went into draft season thinking I was going to get a ton of Kirby shares, and I don't, I'm feeling all the Kirby enthusiasm in March. I don't have as many shares as I'd like, but another guy who pitched last night, I believe, but he's one of the most watchable pitchers in baseball for sure.
Yeah. It makes
Matthew Poliat was extremely high on Kirby coming into the season. So far that's looking pretty good, even though we've had a ton of surprise starting pitchers this season, which we'll get into a little bit more as we move along here. But Chris, you have control of the board so far. Chris is up 500 to 100 on Scott's side. Chris,
let's go George Kenneth Griffey Jr. for 400.
Love it. Okay. For 400, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who leads qualified hitters in on-base percentage going into play Wednesday, June 5th?
I just saw this stat. Aaron Judge.
No, I probably wouldn't have put this question up if it was an obvious answer and worth 400 points.
Well, thank you.
Is it William Contreras?
Nope. It is Jerickson Profar.
424.
Crazy. He signed a 1-year, $1 million deal with the Padres late in spring training, and
He's been fantastic.
Sensational.
After failing as a post-type sleeper 7 different times, this is finally the year. Jurickson profile the form, and Chris can speak the prospects so well.
Oh, yeah.
The former number one prospect in baseball, and I always felt if he had better injury luck, of course, and if maybe they just gave him, I don't know if this is true or not. I hold on to this narrative that when they move you all around the field, and you're playing different positions, that can upset your development as a hitter. And I wonder if maybe if they said the profile, look, this is the position you play. You have one glove, you have one job, you're in the lineup every day. That I certainly didn't expect this season was going to happen where it has, but I feel like that maybe could have given him a different type of career.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's a difficult job. Like the looking for the next Ben Zobrist, I think, has ruined some players who have been given that title, because it's a tough thing to not necessarily know where you're going to be playing that next day. Concentrating on defense as a young player is something that I think gets a little bit underrated. But I am going to make a pun that Profar is so good.
Oh boy! All right, I got to kick you out of here.
Yeah.
All right, Chris.
You don't have to kick him out. You just have to charge him like $300.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Let's make this game more competitive. Start taxing Crawford a little bit.
Yeah, I like it. All right, Chris, you are still in control of the board, up 500 to 100 currently.
Let's go with Pedro Martinez for 300, please.
Okay. Which qualified starting pitcher has the lowest batting average against so far this year?
Rangers Suarez.
Nope. You want to take a guess, Chris? You're not going to be penalized for a long answer or for a wrong.
Luis Gil.
You got it.
Hey,
creamed.
How about that?
By a wide margin too over Rangers Suarez. 129 against Gil so far. 167 Suarez. Tyler Glasnow 171.
I wanted to draft him. I just couldn't pronounce his last name.
I will say that I have some autographed rookie cards of Gil that I was not all that optimistic about coming into the year, that I'm feeling a lot better about right now. Like, it was never a question about stuff with this guy. And, his agent tweeted out like the issues that guy went through, like Tommy John surgery, sat out the COVID year, has dealt with a bunch of stuff. And it's telling that the Yankees did not give up on him. Like, they could have easily moved him in several of the trades that they made, but held on to him. I think it's legit. I get why people are hesitant to believe based on, not the elite prospect pedigree that some of the other hurlers have. But if you watch Luis Gil pitch, how can you not think that's legit?
Right. No, exactly.
To be fair, I do not think he will be holding hitters to a 129 average all year with a 1.82 ERA, but he doesn't have to be an elite starting pitcher either.
Hang on, I got to make an announcement. I'm going to be watching the rest of this episode and then joining DJ's parents for the 7:30 episode when I know all the answers.
That's a great call. Call. All right. Before we move on here, just a quick reminder for our listeners and viewers. The Indy 500 winner, Joseph Newgarden, looks to keep his momentum going this weekend as he battles the world's fastest drivers at Road America. Tune in Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock to see who takes the checkered flag in Wisconsin. So far in this interweb game that we have going on, Chris has the checkered flag. He is up 800 points to 100 for Scott. You have control of the board. So where would you like to go?
Let's go the lowest point available Shohei Ohtani one.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Which team has the most stolen bases so far this season?
Cincinnati.
Nope.
How could that not be right?
They're very close, but it's not them.
Kansas City.
Nope, it's the Nationals.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's all they do is run.
Yeah,
they are super aggressive.
Get Finnegan saves.
I really love the way the Nationals are playing, and I feel like that's how teams who maybe don't have the firepower in the middle of the lineup to score runs, right? I mean, that's the smart thing to do right now when Base stealing. I mean, if you have speedy guys in your lineup, you have a big advantage. So I love what the Nationals are doing. They're looking a little more plucky these days. I don't think they're a contender just yet, but you can see some pieces coming together for them, and certainly some names in the minors as well. James Wood, when he gets healthy, this could be a really fun team pretty soon.
Absolutely. And good City Connect uniforms, which is important when we're talking about fantasy baseball as well, of course. Yeah, they're fun. And Lane Thomas, I can't help but wonder if he's a trade candidate. And he's been, it seems like I've been writing Lane Thomas stole 2 bases on Thursday an awful lot this year when he's been healthy enough to play. I do wonder if he could be somebody who interests teams when we get a little closer to the deadline.
Yeah. You mentioned just losing teams and stolen bases. And I've always felt that sometimes one of the keys to fantasy success is to find that player who's on a team that just doesn't let's just steer into the stolen base. Mm-hmm. And sometimes even if a guy doesn't have a high percentage of steals, I think of Jonathan VR, where he was on the Orioles one year, and it's like, okay, I know he swings at anything, and maybe he doesn't have the greatest WAR or the greatest component stats, but whenever he's on base, let him run. Fine with that. The Royals have played like that before. I think we thought maybe Estuary Ruiz for a while might have been that player because he can't really hit. But Oakland, you need something to sell tickets. You need something to kind of hang your hat on. Now Washington's been, to the delight of producer Adam, they've been more competitive and more fantasy viable than we expected. And I don't know if Finnegan and Gavin can save every other day, but I sometimes I think the stolen base, it's obviously made a comeback. It's never been easier to steal. Maybe 5 years ago, you saw kind of the stolen base was going to kind of get funneled out of baseball because people realized it just wasn't a percentage play anymore. That's changed now, where at least your odds of making it are so much better. And then once you see the 2 pickoff throws exhausted, it's like, well, you better run the next pitch because they're never going to throw another pickoff and get a huge lead. So, a lot of I think our stolen base strategies had to evolve because that's been one of the biggest changes of baseball since they put in all those new rules at the beginning of last season.
I also think it widens the scope of players you can use in fantasy too,
which is great.
It's great. For a while they were kind of like the one trick pony kind of guys. Like I think it's like Jared Dyson, but you can get players in a 5 outfielder league who can help you. Jacob Young has been running crazy for the Nationals so far. You mentioned Lane Thomas, CJ Abrams, of course, but even Jesse Winker, never really stolen bases. He's running seemingly every time he gets on base. He's another potential trade candidate.
It also works the other way, where sometimes you have players like Miguel Garcia, where it's like, okay, if he can just step up and hit 12 to 15 home runs, I think he's been one of the sneakiest fantasy values because he's hitting 267, and we have to reprogram ourselves. 267 is good.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm afraid someday 267 is going to be like a top 20 average in baseball, the way things are headed right now. Where I think there's only 12 or 13 guys over 300 the last I checked. But
there isn't one team that's hitting above 260 this year.
Crazy, right?
We may get into that a little bit later.
I'm at a point now, DJ, I'm at a point now where I think my fantasy rosters need more Miguel Garcia types and less Pete Alonso types, where it's like, Pete Alonso's really good at a couple of things. He's really bad at everything else.
Yeah, if you get a 0 in stolen base categories, you want to compete, right? So if you're getting 0 from certain spots, that is tough. They better exceed highly in the one category that you're banking.
One more to close the book on stolen bases. There's a chicken egg argument where it's like, oh, it's never been easier to steal. Great, I'll just get stolen bases easily. No, you need more of them to be competitive in stolen bases. And now I want my offenses. I want almost every guy to steal a little bit. I'll make exceptions for some players, but I want my roster at the end of the season. I want to look at that offense and see everybody's in double-digit steals for the most part, as many players as possible.
Chris, you still have control of the board, and you are up. Let's see my math. How bad is it? 800 to 100 on Scott right now.
Let's go Ohtani for 200, please.
Ohtani for 200. Which team has the best home record so far this season?
The Philadelphia Phillies.
You got it.
Oh,
you got it.
I got it.
Phillies 26-9, Guardians 21-7, Royals 22-10, Orioles and Dodgers 21-12. The Yankees have been insanely good on the road, which has propped up their win total so far. But the Phillies at the top 26-9. Well, I don't know who the home team is going to be this weekend when the Phillies and Mets play in London. How is that going to break down?
I don't know. Us English are really weird. I'm sure they're like it'll be determined by like a malted vinegar toss or something like that.
Determined by genetics. They'll do
Yes.
genetic testing and see how
Yeah.
many players are based from England in their family tree.
Yeah, I mean that sounds more fun to me than actually watching a Mets game. If I'm just being completely honest with you, man. Like,
Well, the Mets are great with the verbal. You know, they're great with the audio with Ron and Keith and Gary. They're, you know, such a great booth. But watching the Mets isn't fun. Isn't it interesting? The Phillies such a great season, and if you had skipped the first couple months of the season, which my appearance on the show, it sounds like maybe I did. No, I'm just off vacation. I've been playing golf for a couple of days. Give me a coming break. But okay, well, the Phillies are great. Well, is Bryce Harper having an MVP season? No. Trey Turner's having an MVP season? Well, he got hurt. Oh, Aaron Nola, steamrolling towards the Cy Young Award. Nope, no. It's just odd where obviously Ranger Suarez has been running the right answers, but Alex Bohm has had kind of a step up in, which I think is real. I don't know if he's ever going to be a star, but he's become a better player.
Absolutely.
It's just interesting the way the fantasy value has been distributed to a Phillies team. And I realize we can't get away from the fact that they played such an easy schedule that eventually part of it is the National League doesn't have that many winning teams to begin with.
It's awful.
But still their schedule has been such a good run out to this point. It's at some point that will get a little bit tougher. But it's just odd. It just shows you baseball is so much about the depth of your roster.
Yep.
And it isn't about, and we've seen this for years with the Angels, right? I mean, they had Trout when he was the best player in baseball. They had Ohtani when he was probably the best player in baseball. And they never had a winning record with those two guys because of the depth of the roster. And the Phillies' depth has really been a big story there, in addition to a couple other guys. It's just interesting that their biggest names, some of them have been fine. Schwarber's been about what you expect. I don't think Bryce Harper managers are like throwing a fit. You're just waiting for him to have like a 13-homer Bryce Harper month. That hasn't happened yet.
The Cubs have a wild card spot right now, which I think is hilarious because they have been very disappointing, at least over the past month. And that makes me all the more frustrated as a Mets fan because I feel like these teams, like it's there for the taking to get into the postseason.
There could be a sub 500 team in the playoffs.
There could.
Totally in play.
And when that team makes the World Series, I'm going to absolutely lose my mind.
As a Patriots fan, they lost to a Giants team that was outscored in the regular season. And were the Diamondbacks outscored last year?
I don't know that.
It might have been. I know they only won 83
Marlins
games.
were, I believe.
The Marlins, I think, were. They had the fun differential, which the Mariners kind of coined for a second. And they still have fun differential on the 2021 Seattle Mariners, by the way, next to the run differential on Baseball Reference, which is pretty great.
So we still have a lot of high number of questions on the board. So Scott, you're still very much in this game, even though you're down 1,000 to 100 right now. But there's an opportunity to come back. Chris, you do have the board though. So what would you like to choose now?
Let's go Pedro for 400.
Pedro for 400. Let me get my questions here. All right. Ranger Suarez currently has the lowest ERA among all qualified starting pitchers, but I'm looking at expected stats for this question. Which qualified starting pitcher has the lowest expected ERA so far this season?
Scooble.
Nope. Might surprise you.
Logan Gilbert?
Nope. It's Garrett Crochet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's going to be one of my wild card answers whenever I wasn't sure who to say. I was just going to say Garrett Crochet. I think I already said him for one of my answers. I'll also point out, yes, Arizona was outscored last year by 15 runs.
Jeez.
Funny Crochet. We talk about, just because you have great players doesn't mean your team is great. I mean, the White Sox, I feel like, 12 losses in a row, something like that. Is Garrett Crochet like the only guy we want on this team?
It's yes. The White Sox are 5-8 in his starts, which sounds bad, but if you compare it to the fact that they are 10-38 in all other games, this season, that's pretty darn good. Crochet's expected ERA is 2.20, a full run under his actual ERA, but he's been great. Hasn't allowed more than 2 earned runs in any of his last 7 starts. One of the couple bright spots on that White Sox roster. It's not many. But Crochet has been one of them and an excellent surprise as well.
Yeah, I mean, when they took him out of Tennessee, I get why they made the move to relief. It was the fast track, and based on some command issues, it kind of made sense as well. But give him credit. They've developed him into a really strong starting pitching option. And according to Jeff Passan, who, occasionally gets these things right, he's apparently available. And I would be really interested to see in what kind of return they can get for him. Great to see Luis Robert back, by the way. That was, I wish he played for a team that doesn't have a snowball's chance and of making any type of postseason run, but it is nice to see him back on the field. But it wouldn't shock me if the easily worst team in baseball became one of those teams that we talk about as one of the worst of all time if they move guys like Robert and Crochet.
And interesting, you talk about relief to starting. Jordan Hicks has been successful in that area. Mike King actually been, I think, pretty unlucky, although he's got a little bit of a gopher problem in San Diego. But it used to be everything was start him as a starter and then move him back to relief. And every once in a while, a pitcher would try to go from the bullpen to the starting rotation. And we'd all laugh like that's never going to work. But I feel like today, and look, baseball pitching, it's obviously it's so many things, and we're chasing a butterfly and we're swinging our net at it, and the butterfly is somewhere else. But it's just interesting to see some success stories from what is usually a not success story.
Chris, you still have the board.
Oh boy, now I got to go with the big numbers. Let's go. Let's go Ohtani division 400, please.
Ohtani for 400. Which team's offense has the highest strikeout percentage so
Seattle
far?
Mariners.
That's correct.
Yeah, unfortunately, I knew I was going to get that one pretty quick. It's so funny that Dipoto and Hollander came out and talked about, hey, one of the reasons we're not offering the qualifying offer and one of the reasons we're trading Eugenio Suarez is we really want to cut down on those strikeouts. That it has been even worse. It has been absolutely hard to watch this team. Like, so many guys.
But they're in first place.
They're in first place, which is, I think, best basketball. The joke used to be best basketball player in Canada, but now we can't do that anymore because Canada's really good at basketball. But like that division is terrible. Like I think the Rangers have 2.5 starting pitchers left. Houston, unfortunately, Jose Urquidy and Christian Javier going down with Tommy John surgery. That's such a bummer. And then Oakland and Los Angeles are just not even trying. If you told them the season could end right now, I think they would happily say, no, we're good. We'll take our chances in the draft lottery now. And actually, Oakland can't win the draft lottery because of the way they have the rules set up this year. But yeah, Seattle's swing and miss problem is very, very, very real.
It also shows you that the ballpark factor to strikeouts is very real too. We've always seen this in San Diego, right? Because pitchers aren't worried that they're going to get creamed on contact, so they're in the zone more often, and so that's a very real thing. It's proved itself out for decades. By the way, I certainly don't wish any of the Houston players hurt. Tommy John surgery is no fun, but I do not mind. I'm here for the Astros to be under 500. I'd be totally fine with that.
So let's take it down a little peg or two. When you go to 7 straight ALCSs, I think it's kind of nice to be reminded that success is not given for anybody.
All right, Chris. So you have 1,400 points. Scott is at 100. It's still mathematically possible you could come back, Scott. You got to be on your game for the next 3 questions, though.
Man, I'm a Red Sox fan. I had no idea I'd be the White Sox in this game, but
I have the banker calling me right now, and I think I'm just going to take my deal and head on home. Let's just go in order. Let's go Pedro for 500.
Pedro for 500. Okay. Which starting pitcher leads the majors in FanGraphs version of wins above replacement? Starting pitcher. Nope.
Starting pitcher leads in wins above replacement. I almost want to say Tyler Anderson, but it's not.
Is it Glasnow? I'm sorry. I had my guess.
Go ahead and make a guess.
I'm going to go Logan Gilbert again, just because I want to talk about Logan Gilbert.
It's Tanner Houck.
Wow.
Red Sox, okay.
Yeah, Cole Reagan, Eric Skubal, Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler, but it is Tanner Houck. And for the record, his slider has the highest run value of any pitch from a starting pitcher this season.
Yeah, Andrew Bailey's done some great job, great work with that Boston rotation. There's been a lot. I know Cutter Crawford hasn't been as good lately, but he's been a right answer. Houck's been a right answer. Of course, you got to keep your pitchers healthy, which we're all trying to figure out how to do that. But it's been the Red Sox have been a more competitive watch. I know it's frustrating to see them act like they're a small market team when they're not a small market, but it's been a more watchable Boston team than I expected.
Chris, for Cole Reagans too, to be right in there as well, man. Like I was such a fan of him as a prospect, and seeing what he did after that trade. How good would Cole Reagans look in that in that Texas Rangers rotation? By the way,
he was in the Aroldis Chapman trade, right? Is that correct?
The Aroldis Chapman trade. Yep.
This is now 2 times that an Aroldis Chapman trade has led to a championship with like a significant player going back the other way. Gleyber Torres with the Yankees, and in the Cubs trade when they finally broke that 100-year drought or whatever it was with the Cubs.
Yeah.
And then the Rangers win the World Series. I think they have no regrets. Flags fly forever, as Scott.
Yeah. Sure. Unlike my Red Sox, who decided they needed to have Larry Anderson, and they traded Jeff Bagwell, who at the time they thought Scott Cooper was good. Yeah. And also Bagwell was languishing in Double-A at the time. He was hitting for a high average. He wasn't hitting for any power. The stadium that they played in Connecticut had horrible lighting. And every major Red Sox hitting prospect at that time who went through that park, their power was depressed. Also, Bagwell was a little bit of a late bloomer anyway, but I was in the McCoy Stadium AAA press box the night that trade happened, and everybody, people who knew a lot more about Bagwell than I did at the time, were all like, "Oh my God, they're going to regret this." They weren't saying Jeff Bagwell was going to be a Hall of Famer, but he's going to be a good major league hitter. And Larry Anderson's, late 30s. Lou Gorman didn't know he was a New York free agent, so they didn't even keep Anderson past the season. Anderson actually pitched well. I think people forget that, but what a horrible trade. And Bagwell grew up in New England. He was a Red Sox fan. He would have loved nothing more than to tattoo the Green Monster for 20 seasons.
That also reminds me of the Smoltz Doyle Alexander trade, because Doyle Alexander was actually pretty darn good for Detroit as well.
Fantastic. 7-0 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And, sometimes it's a win-win. I wouldn't necessarily call that one a win-win, because John Smoltz, obviously had a much longer, healthier career, but it did help them. Like, there's no question about it. Like, and flags do fly forever. But I think people just flat out forget that Doyle Alexander really, really helped the Detroit Tigers. And that's ultimately the goal, is to win.
And that was the year they took down the flailing Blue Jays, who Alexander was 9-0. He won 9 of his 11 starts for the Tigers with a 1.53 ERA. And then, of course, they got wiped off the map in the ALCS against the Twins. But that was a really fun Tigers team.
I'm thinking of the Seinfeld episode when George's dad yells at George Steinbrenner.
Did you trade
Jay Buhner trade?
Yeah.
Hideki Irabu. Yeah, for that was the final Seinfeld episode. How do you guys feel about did you guys watch the final episode of Curb?
No, I have not watched any of
either.
The final season yet. I'm waiting until the All-Star break to have a chance to where there's nothing going on, just to watch that full season. But I'm really looking forward to it.
Jerry Seinfeld is one of the players in that final episode. I'll just mention that. Leave it at
that. Chris, you have the board for 2 more questions, and then we have our final question.
Okay.
Well, which is worth $8 million.
So let's go with Pedro, or excuse me, we have Ohtani and Griffey left, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's save the best Seattle Mariner for last and go with Ohtani for 500 for now.
Okay, Ohtani for 500, and I referenced this a little bit earlier, but here we go. The current league batting average is 240. Only one single season in the modern era has a lower batting average.
1968.
You got it. You got it, Scott.
Was that worth 20,000 points? What was that worth?
500. So you're in the game.
Yeah, that was the year Yastrzemski hit 301, won the batting title. Famously, Bob Gibson had the 1.12 ERA. But if you go by seasonal adjusted, context ERA, it doesn't quite measure up to maybe some of the best Pedro seasons. Not that Bob Gibson wasn't an absolute monster, but a lot of guys had ERAs under 2 that year. Gibson's stats were fun.
There were 50 pitchers with a sub-3 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Qualified pitchers.
Gibson lost 9 games. He had a 1.12 ERA and he had 9 losses, which is a pretty neat trick.
Right. It's pretty wild that Yastrzemski had such a great season in a year where basically nobody hit. So it's pretty incredible. And of course, after that, I mean, it's a pivotal year in baseball history because the mound was lowered. The strike zone changed to kind of more of the modern strike zone that we see today. So the 1968 season is very important.
Right. And if you want to get a sense of what baseball was like then, I say this about once or twice a year. Go read Ball 4 again, which was Jim Bouton's biography of, or I should say diary of the 1969 season, where the mound gets changed again. Expansion comes in. Boughton, a former regular pitcher with the Yankees, went to the World Series a couple of times, made at least one All-Star team, had a 21-game season. He's trying to hold on as a knuckleballer. I still think Shane Waldron's having a nice season with the Padres. I think we need more knuckleballers in baseball.
Oh my gosh,
knuckleballers don't get hurt, right?
Yeah,
Their arms don't get hurt.
Some of them don't have UCLs. If you're
for sure, there are just some great books. I mean, that book is a great version of what baseball was like right before that expansion era offense. The DH isn't far away 4 years later in the American League. Or you read Breaks of the Game if you want to know what the NBA was like when Bird and Magic saved it. The NBA was really in big trouble. David Halberstam wrote that great book about the NBA. So just, when the All-Star break comes, you need a couple of days off. You're on the beach. You need something to read. Ball 4 is about as good a choice as you can make.
NBA Finals about to start. Who do you got for the finals, Scott, Chris?
Celtics.
So I mean, of course, it's Celtics for you.
Yeah.
I think the Celtics are the answer. I wish they were more exciting.
Yeah,
but they're a finesse team and they're really good and they're deep.
They're really good and they're going to get a really good player back for the series as
that's
well.
Big. Porzingis being available for round one. I wish they weren't so reliant on the three. I wish they had maybe a better resume in close games. They've kind of beaten that narrative in the 12-2 playoff run that they've had. But Boston Celtics, I'm not in live and die mode with the Celtics the way I might have been when I grew up. They've won plenty of championships. The Boston team I really want so badly to win another championship is the Bruins, who, other than beating the Canucks in 2011, they've been 0 for my entire life. And they've had so many good teams. They've gotten to Game 7s of Stanley Cups and not won them. I feel like the bag has always been light for them. But if the Celtics somehow lose to a Kyrie Irving team, he spent 2 years. He spent 2 years in Boston, and everybody who lived in New England would have offered to drive that guy to the airport. He was not invested. He was just a cancer in the clubhouse. He was a horrible teammate. And he goes to New Jersey and says, "You think I was a bad team?" Or Brooklyn, I guess it was. He goes, "You think I'm a bad teammate now? Watch what I do to the Nets. I basically light that team on fire." I realize he's playing a different version of basketball now. Doncic is terrific. They're a very well-run organization. I have a lot of respect for Mark Cuban. He's always like a step or two ahead of things. I don't dislike the rest of the Mavericks, but man, I just can't root for Kyrie Irving under any circumstances.
I've got a lot of Derek Lively rookie cards that would be very happy if he played well in this series, to be honest with you. But and Luke is phenomenal. Like, I wish I had some of those rookie cards because I certainly wouldn't be doing this podcast right now if I did. But it's I think it'll be a pretty good series, but I'll say Celtics in 6.
Yeah, and if you have a heart, man, you got to root for the Edmonton Oilers to break the Canadian jinx. There hasn't been a title since 1993. If you live in Florida, I'll give you a pass. You want to be a Panthers fan?
Tossing away my heart right now. Man, I'll never root for I love you, Canada. I've insulted you twice on this podcast, but that's the funniest streak a lot.
Anti-Canada Crawford.
So you're rooting for it to continue. Is that what you're saying?
I saw the entire Gretzky career. I saw the entire Mario Lemieux career. Connor McDavid's the best offensive player I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh, I think we
lost. Now he's not Mike Trout anymore. He used to be the Mike Trout guy. It's like, Connor McDavid's great. His team stinks. No playoff success. Finally he's running. He's way ahead of everybody else in scoring. In fact, if nobody from Florida steps up and has a monster, Bobrovsky's been really good, but I think there's even a possibility McDavid could win the MVP of the playoffs as the Conn Smythe Trophy, even if Edmonton doesn't win the cup. It would have to be he goes crazy and maybe Bobrovsky has a couple of bad games or doesn't start every game, but I think that's even in play.
So we lost Chris.
Good. He's disqualified. Finally,
he's back. All right.
Oh, he's back.
All right. Sorry. Okay, there you are. We're back.
The person with the better internet connection gets a 20,000 point bonus. I was told that beforehand. I don't know if you guys have it in the rules now, but I'm sticking to that.
Unfortunately, I had a bunch of windows open for some stuff that I'm working on right now, and there's a certain website that we all go to that is famous for crashing.
Isn't it bad?
Yes.
I don't want to say anything about what that website is, but oh my God, it's getting worse and worse by the day.
Yeah.
Well, a bunch of windows up. That's like the Giants a few years ago where they opened up the windows. And all of a sudden the ball was flying out of the park left and right.
Adam just guessed that website very quickly.
We all have some friends who were there, and so I'm not going to say anything bad. And it's not their fault.
No, it's not.
I say that from experience when people are mad about websites. Okay, so Scott, you have control of the board. There's only one question left to choose from. So
well, just because Chris is a Seattle fan, I'm going to go with the Ken Griffey Senior Division.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay.
So this is a hard question.
Good.
But
I like
it's not outside of the realm of possibility that you could get this, Scott.
Maybe I studied it. Who knows?
Which qualified hitter has the highest batting average on balls in play this season? Really boosting up their average with this BABIP here.
I think I know this. I got to hang on a second.
In a hitter's paradise.
Ryan McMahon?
No, but very close.
Elias Diaz.
Nope, it's Ezekiel Tovar.
Oh, that was going to be next.
He's at 395 with his BABIP this season.
Jeez.
His strikeout rate is almost 30%, but his batting average, I believe, is 310 right now because of the BABIP. But there are a number of factors going into BABIP, as we know. Whether you're hitting the ball hard, speed is a big component of that as well. Where you're actually hitting the ball on the ground versus the air. So I think Tovar, if you add in the defense, Tovar is right on the fringe of the top 10 in wins above replacement right now.
And they had one of the BABIP guys last year was Nolan Jones, who's about to come back. One of those players, like, this is always a tough thing, right? Where it's like he can't possibly be this good. The BABIP is unrealistic, but regression to what? Could he still be a quality player? Of course, he was playing so poorly before he got hurt, but I'd like to see him at least redeem himself with a couple of quality months. It's been weird to look at Colorado. Usually there's like 7 or 8 hitters we want to roster, and this year it's like half that.
Yeah.
But I just like to see, at least they played better. Ironically, they played better on the road this year. Usually they're just they're like the homecoming team you invite so you can win and everybody can be happy, invite Colorado. They haven't been quite that bad, but it's not the Rockies we grew up with, the Blake Street Bombers, like the Galarraga years, the Bichette years, the Vinny Castilla years. I mean, it feels like Larry Walker, of course, 1997 MVP, I think it was. But
it's not even the Troy Tulowitzki years or Matt Holliday years.
No, it's not.
Did
Ellis Burks years.
When you were putting together that question, was Brent Rooker pretty high on that list as well?
Yeah, he's number 2.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, just based on how much that guy swings and miss and seeing his average in the 280s, I was like, this guy has to be among the league leaders as well. But an interesting player that I think is probably going to get traded based on some people that I've talked to as well. And I think he'd be a nice little get for anybody. And he's become one of my favorite Twitter people too. Like the way he answers questions, talking about like the difference between sweepers and sliders and going deep into that stuff.
Cool.
He's going to be a really good broadcaster when he's done with this. I'll tell you that.
How about the Braves? He'd be a good fit for Atlanta, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would make sense. We got to make sure Jared Kelnick's in the lineup every day, because every day he doesn't play, I get closer and closer to realizing I'm an absolute sham at this. But
yeah, I was gonna ask you if it's ever gonna happen for Kelnick. I know DJ, obviously the Mets guy, and Chris, your Seattle guy and the prospect guy. What's our state of the Kelnick address?
I still think there's hope just based on these flashes of brilliance, but it's looking less and less likely. Like he just goes through these spurts where his approach changes. I still think the biggest thing that with him is that they tried to change who he was, which was a 70 grade hit, 50 plus guy power, into a guy that they tried to tap into 70 grade raw power. And it just, whatted him up so bad that I don't think he'll ever quite be the same player.
I think he should change the pronunciation of his last name to what everybody other than you guys says it is. Everybody wants to call him Kelnick. Yeah, I think if he added that third syllable, you talk about the starting pitcher, right? With the starting pitcher, it's about having that third pitch. Maybe with Kelnick, it's about steering into the third syllable.
Yeah.
So we've reached our final question, and there's still a chance that you can tie Chris here, because there are 4 answers to this question. There have been 4 shutouts thrown in MLB this season. Name as many as you can. I need you to write this down.
Okay.
Or something. Get something to write on. So 4 shutouts thrown in MLB this season. Name as many as you can with a maximum of 4 guesses total. 200 points for each. So this is an 800-point question potentially. The current score is 1,400 Chris to 600 Scott. So if Scott can run the table and Chris gets none of these, we could have a tie game.
Spoiler, I'm not going to run the table. I'd be happy if I got one of these. I'd be happy.
I think I might actually have 3 of these. So So what am I supposed to?
While you guys think about it, I'll give you a few seconds here. But
if three of these guys are Mariners, I'm just going to say this was a
I can tell you
this was a biased setup.
No comment. But
Okay.
I'll give you a few seconds to think about it.
All right.
And obviously, if you like what you're hearing with the show, remember to subscribe to the Rotoworld Baseball Show wherever you get your podcast. And also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts would be much appreciated. That stuff moves us up in the rankings. So please rate and review if you have the ability to do so. Would be much appreciated. Guys, where are we on this question? Are you ready?
Yep.
Ready.
Okay. All right. I will let Scott go first here.
Man, I'm pretty sure the last time we played this game.
Or do you want to hold it up? Or you hold up your answer just so we're all square and I can read it.
I actually did. I wrote it down on my computer, but I can assure you, look, I'm not going to win anyway.
Okay.
I don't have any doubt that Chris is playing authentically. I'm kicking myself though, because last time you ran this game last year, you had a complete game question. And at that time, I was in a fantasy league that had complete games, so that I was very in tune. Every time, it was like a 9x9 league, but every time somebody threw a complete game, it was a standing changer. So I was really in tune with this. I have 5 names written down in my edit pad here, and I got to kick out one of them. I'm not sure any of these are right. I'm going to say Garrett Crochet again. I'm going to say Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, and I'll go with Heel over Flaherty, although for some reason I think Flaherty may have had a complete game. Crochet, Nola, Suarez, and Heel.
All right, so you got 2 of them.
Oh, good.
Chris.
I had Ranger Suarez, Aaron Nola, and Max Fried, and I think Max Fried might have 2.
Okay, you got 3. So so the full list: Max Fried, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, Tanner Houck again.
Oh, the Houck
again
came back.
So 17. Let's see my math here. So Chris wins the game 1,700 to 1,000. Very well done, Chris. And this means we're gonna have to have you back at some point to defend your crown.
I think that was an over too. I think we finally, with me showing up, we actually punched the over ticket too.
Yeah, no, this was awesome, guys. Thanks so much.
Fun.
This was a blast. I like this game because it really is a jumping off point to talk about some of these players and also to think about some of players who are really surprising relative to expectations. I don't know if there's many like waiver wire names we've mentioned today, but certainly some players who, if you look up at the calendar today, being June 5th, and you're like, wow, are they really doing that?
You defended your thesis, DJ Short. It's okay. You wanted to do something fun, and it totally fit into the standings. You don't have to. No, it was fun, and like some of those guys, like Tanner Houck, like if they're not on your radar, they need to be on your radar because this is a large sample now of success. And the one thing I say with some of these players is keep in mind, and it's the truth for the players who have struggled. Keep in mind, you are not acquiring the stats that they've already picked up in fantasy, right? Like you're only going to pick up what's going to happen going forward, which can be a good for players who have struggled, who are going to get better, and the opposite. But, use the eye test, use the fact that these guys now have a larger sample of being pretty good to make your roster a lot better.
DJ, I was hoping you were going to ask which pitcher had allowed the most home runs and had the most walks allowed, because I think that's Tristan McKenzie.
Oh, yeah.
Any unlucky hitter stat, I was just going to say Christopher Morel. Marcell Ozuna has been a first-round producer for about a calendar year now, maybe even a little bit longer. And I think Lars Nootbaar has the longest average home run in baseball, something like that. I'm like, well, if you ever asked that, I'm ready. These are the 7 minutes.
It's Jamie, he's hurt, but yeah.
Yes, the 7 minutes of quasi preparation I had as I ate some eggs this morning and tried not to embarrass myself. Hats off to Chris. Great to finally have a conversation with somebody who's been a longtime internet friend and one of my favorite baseball follows.
Oh, it's the first time you guys doing a show together.
Yes, for sure. It was a blast.
We did a mini mock draft.
That's right.
We didn't get to talk to each other very
That's
often.
right. We did do a mock draft. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
This is much more fun, and it's
right. In fact, I think in that draft, I think I took Julio Rodriguez. No, I took Shohei Ohtani or somebody in that draft, and you took like somebody who was kind of fringy, and you're like, what am I doing? How could I not take Ohtani? I do remember that now. Yeah, but it's great to see you again. Yeah, certainly it's great to see you back on the Rotoworld umbrella because you're one of my favorite baseball writers. And it's good to have you back home where you belong. And anytime I can pod with DJ is a good day. So thanks for having me, guys.
You bet.
Yeah, this was great. I'm very happy to have Chris back in the fold. One of the good people, one of the good writers, one of the good prospect analysts in the game. So I'm very happy to have Chris back.
Appreciate it
for sure. Check out NBCSports.com, the fantasy baseball section. Matthew Poliat has his June rankings up for each position, top 300 overall. And again, think about this as what's going to happen moving forward. Often there's feedback and people being like, why is Julio Rodriguez in your top 10? It's crazy. But it's all about what they project to potentially do moving forward, which is very, very important. So go to NBCSports.com, head over to the fantasy baseball section for all of our coverage over there. And of course, Yahoo as well, where Scott and his crew does fantastic work as well. You can follow us on Twitter or X if you don't already. I'm at DJ Short. Chris is at Crawford_MILB, and Scott is at Scott_Pianowski. Take care, everyone, and we will see you next time.